Okay, I've officially talked about her for a half hour.
Beep boop ba-doop ba-doo ba-doop boop.
Back when I did my gay male romance video, I told you I took out a giant chunk where all I did was talk about how amazing R. Cooper is, and this is that video. Enjoy. She is possibly my favorite writer. That's a weird descriptor to give someone because every writer is so unique and different, but I love every book that she has ever written. Like, there's maybe like two books that just kind of weren't necessarily my thing, but they're still good. So the other books I read of hers, I'm gonna give really brief more my thoughts on them than a summary because they're all good. Treasure for Treasure is about a dragon and a human, and huh. The dragon's personality is not necessarily what I'm into, but the human's personality was 100% what I'm into, and oh my gosh, that book was very amazing and adorable and sweet and just, oh, I love all of her books. This is just gonna be me spewing good adjectives like amazing, incredible, wonderful, ah! That's gonna be the whole video, sorry. Holly and Oak was an interesting one. I loved Familiar Spirits. She has this like Halloween line, and I think she releases a new one every Halloween. I don't know. But they're like spooky witch books, and I loved Familiar Spirits so much, which is another one that I should probably reread. But Holly and Oak was different a lot from Familiar Spirits, so I was like going into it wanting that familiar experience, wanting that but with new characters, and it wasn't. So I think maybe if I hadn't gone into it with that, then I would have liked it more. But it's about two guys who are like the personification of like summer and winter in their like witch rituals, and so like they have a lot of the character traits of summer and winter, and then like at the turn of the seasons, they're supposed to like metaphorically kill the other one and steal all their power. And so they have this like sort of angsty relationship where like their function in the way the world works is that they're supposed to constantly kind of hurt each other or like be weak while the other one is strong, and so they're never balanced. And so like the characters are into each other, but they have this like larger magical thing going on that they have to deal with. So like it's fascinating, but it's just not my kind of jam. It's not my flavor of jam. But because it was Halloween and I was reading all these spooky books, I also read the third one in that like witchy magic series, which is called Nothing More Certain. I just think of it as like the owl book because the cover has like a big ass owl on it. And then I'm like squinting at it like, what is the actual title of this book? That one is fantastic. Like so good. So it's adorable. One of the guys is like a goth aesthetic blogger, and he has like a YouTube channel called Witchcraft where he like does spooky goth crafty things. Even though she described his work as being closer to art and gorgeous, I basically spent the whole book imagining his house was filled of stuff like this. And he's like YouTube famous for like having these like cutesy like how to make, I don't know, like how to cook the best goth cookies or like whatever, and it's so great. But it's him and then the like keeps to himself graveyard owner in like the town. He like maintains the graveyard, and so like he's like this kind of bitter curmudgeon who just wants to be left alone in his like his graveyard. And then the other guy is like constantly, people are always like fawning over him, and like people talk to him all the time. And but you know, of course, there's like more to their personalities than just that, and there's like magic stuff going on too, and just like this whole thing. But it's really good if you want like a kind of spooky but very romantic read. His Mossy Boy is a very weird title. I didn't know if I would like it, but I did a lot, especially because it's set in the same town that Treasure for Treasure is in, and so you get to see the other characters in the town, which I really like in romance novels because it sometimes feels like the relationship between the characters just ends right when they get together. And I like whenever you get a new romance, so it's not focused on that relationship still, but like you get to see them interacting in the background with other people. I really like that because it shows the relationship as it grows and continues. But the magic in this one is weird. Like, I don't even know really what the magic creature is in this one, and like the whole mystery of who and what he is kind of part of the book, so I'm not going to tell you. I think I just didn't pay attention to that part so much because I was like, the romance, and then they're like talking about the magic, and I'm like, this is nice, the romance. I'm here for one reason only, and that is like warm fuzzies. But his Mossy Boy begins a sort of, I don't know what order they came in, but for me, reading them, I read them one after another. So it began this like series of R. Cooper books that really delve deep into queer identity, and especially people who are closeted or have family or friends who don't approve of being queer, which is something that, like, there's this whole larger conversation about whether women should be writing gay male romance because they cannot have the same experience as a gay male. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? If you are a part of the community or know anything about the genre, you know the ongoing conversation about gay male romance and how most of those books are written by cis women. There are some non binary people, and of course, gay males and trans people who are writing these books. However, a lot of big popular names are straight women. Like, I don't have like a chart of everyone's sexualities. There is a large percentage that are at least cis women of varying sexualities. So there's some people who view that as extremely negative because it would be like if you had a whole bunch of books about women's issues and they were all written by cis men. If it was an overwhelming majority, you would look at this and be like, why? What's going on here? And like, I'm not going to share my opinion because my opinion tends to change. And it's really a case by case basis. Also, there are some women like R. Cooper who are amazing and incredible at writing these books and giving their gay male characters authenticity and discussing their identities and their queer experiences and like not shying away from the fact that like these are queer people. On the flip side, there are some female authors who are writing gay men in this like weird fetishized, very like fanfic-esque world of strange sex and very far removed from the reality of gay men. Like, you read it and it's like very obvious that like this is not queer culture, and the person writing this knows nothing about queer culture. They might know about like people who ship men together in fanfic, which is a very different thing from like actual queer people. It's very nuanced and difficult to explain unless you are queer and you're reading this and you're like... But anyways, there is this whole discussion. It's fascinating to me how R. Cooper in her books, at least recently, I feel like in her very beginning of her career she didn't do this, but probably because you can't take risks like that when no one knows who you are. But in the books that I've read this like last 2 months, she hits hard. 2 of them are Hottie Scotty and Mr. Porter, and For Better or For Worse. No, For Better or Worse. Both of those are set in the same town, and they focus around a firefighter house? A firehouse. Several gay men that are in there. In this town, there is a group of women that they call the Knitting Circle, because they're all of these like meddlesome middle-aged straight women who read a lot of gay erotic romance novels. And when they find out there are gay men in their town, they like become obsessed with finding them the perfect partner. And it's so good because like she doesn't preach at you, she just shows you like these women don't understand what life is like for gay men, and they're like dealing in this weird fantasy realm totally detached from reality where like, like very specific types of men want to be with very other specific types of men. And it's fascinating. It's just so well done because instead of being like, you shouldn't do this, she just kind of shows you like the grossest version of the people that in this giant dialogue. She's just like, portrays that and then shows what that actually does to the male characters in the book, which is really well done. For Better, For Worse really delves deep into like queer identity because there's these two guys who have been like best friends for years, and one of them is demisexual. And the way that she portrays demisexual is nothing like my demisexuality. So I felt weird reading it. Not like it was like a bad representation of a demisexual person, but just that it was not the same as me at all. So I was like, a demisexual character, and then I was like, I know that's how it works for some people, but I just didn't identify with that at all. But part of being together, part of their romantic arc is the fact that they have to, like, come out to their firehouse of big, straight, cis men. You know? That's like, it's such a huge part of the story, is them, like, having to deal with the fact that their friends might not approve, or, like, how it changes the workplace, how it changes how the city views them. And, like, so many gay male romance novels don't talk about that at all. Like, it's very much about the sex and the men and the romance going on. And if somebody has to come out to someone, it's like either played up for angst so that the guys can like bond more together, or it's just like brushed off as this like warm fuzzy like, oh, of course we love you, and then it's just like never talked about again. In Jericho Candelabra or something, I don't know his last name, this is gay debut, she does this as well, and she has like, oh, there's so many great quotes in that book, because it's about a guy who is older. He's never pursued his like attraction for men because there was like other concerns that he had to deal with. Like, he had to take care of his family, and you know, like his parents split up, and like his dad was sick or something, and his little sister got pregnant like in high school, I think, and she had like 3 kids with an abusive guy. And so it's like he's been like, you know, he's been on, you know, like just going and going and going and taking care of people, making sure that everything was okay. And then all of that kind of settles. His nieces and nephews like grow up, and they're like in high school, going to college. Like, people don't need him as much anymore, and he can finally like focus on himself. And when he does, he realizes that like he skipped the whole part of his life where he was supposed to be experimenting and like, you know, like finding out his identity. So he's like a grown-ass man, and he's like 40 something years old, and he's never sorted out, or he's never come out to anyone. He's never like pursued this, and he's just like finally getting a chance to, and it's like terrifying, because it's like, I've spent my whole life locking this part of me away, and now I am finally confronting it. All of that in a beautiful romance novel that will sweep you off your feet and make you full of warm fuzzies. Like, how can you ever go back to reading stereotypical trash after reading these books? Like, it's so hard to find good books after this. This is like, if you want to enter into a reading slump, or read these books, she will ruin you for other novelists. And I'm not even done, okay? We started talking about his mousy boy and the magic portion of it, but the part that, like, stabbed me in the fucking heart, which hits very close to home for me personally, is the human character. The human character has a mother who is emotionally abusive. She does not approve of his being queer. And, oh, the way that it is handled in the book is just like almost word for word, like scenes from my actual life. Like, he'll be talking about his job where his manager is a gay man. She will just very like subtly, you know, oh, you need to stay away from that guy. Like, he's not a good guy, or like, I don't like you hanging around those people. She never says outright, like, you know, oh, those terrible gay people. But she's just very heavily implying it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's my entire life. It's so authentic and real, and she just like dives into it and has no fear of just like talking about these issues, and in the context of this like sweeping, beautiful romance. So like, she'll take you to these like really difficult places to like explore emotionally, and then just like wraps you in a warm fuzzy blanket. I also read her book Dancing Lessons, which has a really good arc in it about feeling worthy of someone's love after leaving an emotionally abusive romantic relationship. Very well done, and I just don't personally have as strong a passion for it as I do for the other ones, but it is just as equally well written and well portrayed, and all of her books are amazing. You will love them. Some of her earlier books, before she was really polished and knew what she was doing, Some of them can be very wordy, like flowery, like she will spend like 3 pages to describe like someone's gaze, basically. We've all been there as writers. The stuff she's putting out now, every single book, I'm just like, I know this book is gonna like just make me spoiled for all other books forever.